So if you're a golfer,
Uh,
I am almost certain you know this feeling.
Oh, yeah.
You're on the range, you're working on that one perfect drill, the one your favorite pro just posted about.
Yeah, it feels great on the range.
It feels amazing.
Yeah.
But then you get out on the course, the pressure's on, and it all falls apart.
It vanishes, and your swing just snaps back to, well, what feels natural? And that's usually when things go sideways.
Exactly. And that cycle, that constant frustration, it's really at the heart of what a lot of amateurs experience.
It is. And it comes from this historical model of golf instruction that tries to squeeze every single unique body into one sort of perfect geometric swing.
The mannequin on the magazine cover.
Precisely. And if you don't look like that, then the assumption is you must be doing something wrong.
Right. So the problem isn't the effort, it's that the blueprint is wrong for you. And that's what we're getting into today. We are doing a deep dive into your sources on a real evolution in golf coaching. We're talking about the 3x3 archetype model from Hendrik Jensch and the team at the AI Golf Chatbot and Golf Academy 360 Degrees.
Right. And our mission here is really to decode what we call your swing fingerprint. And the whole thing hinges on this one core concept. It's called intrinsic dynamics.
Okay, intrinsic dynamics. That sounds a little technical, but it feels like it's a really important idea for anyone who struggles with being consistent. So how do we break that down?
Think of it as your body's default setting. It's like it's factory-installed software for movement.
It's not just a bad habit I picked up somewhere.
No, this is much deeper. These are coordination patterns that are literally rooted in your physical structure. We're talking about, the length of your bones, the angle of your joints, how flexible your spine is naturally.
So if I, for instance, have a really flexible spine and some coach tells me I have to keep my back rigid and just turn my shoulders, I'm basically fighting my own body.
You are fighting your own nature, 100%. And when you do that, a few things happen. You become inefficient, you open yourself up to injury, especially lower back stuff. And this is the critical part, you guarantee that your swing is not repeatable under pressure.
Because your body will always revert to what's natural.
It will always go back to its default setting. So the goal here is to find that pattern and then build the swing around it, not the other way around.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So if that's the problem, how do we stop guessing what our natural pattern is and actually start measuring it?
Well, that takes us right to the core of the sources. It's this tool called the 3x3 Swing Archetype Matrix.
The matrix.
And what's so brilliant about it is how it takes this huge, kind of overwhelming complexity of human movement and just simplifies it
Into 9 blueprints, right?
into 9 predictable blueprints. And it does that by looking at the intersection of 2 big biomechanical systems in your body.
Okay, let's take them one by one.
Yeah.
System 1 is the upper body types.
Correct. This is all about how your arms, hands, and the club want to move. And there are 3 main categories.
What are they?
First, you have the on-top movers. These are very shoulder-dominant players. Think deep torso rotation.
Okay.
Second, the under movers. These players are driven by their forearms and wrists, lots of rotation and hinge. And then the third is on the side, which is basically a balanced mix of the other 2. They're the ones who often look the most, textbook.
Okay, so that's the upper body.
Right.
What about system 2, the lower body dynamics? I feel like that's the real engine.
It is the engine, and system 2 is all about how your pelvis rotates and how you generate that force from the ground up. It looks at patterns, do you rotate early, do you block late? But it also measures something really specific we'll get into called the sway gap.
So you take your upper body type, shoulder-driven, arm-driven, or a mix, and you cross-reference it with your lower body pattern.
And boom, you land on one of those 9 archetypes. And that is, it's a moment of liberation for a golfer because suddenly it defines your perfect matchups. It tells you the ideal way to grip the club, how high your hands should be, how wide your stance should be.
So a swing flaw might not be a flaw at all.
It's just a mismatch. Trying to use a neutral grip when your body is built for a strong one isn't a fault in your swing, it's a fault in your setup.
Let's dig into that, specifically the upper body mechanics, because this is where it gets really interesting. How you move your arms, whether you're on top or under, seems to dictate everything.
It really does. So let's use an analogy. For the on-top player, think of chopping wood. It's a very vertical, shoulder-driven movement.
Okay, chopping wood. And the sources say for these players, their trail shoulder extends way behind their body in the backswing.
It does, and that keeps their hands staying pretty close to their torso.
And what kind of setup does it require?
Well, because of that motion, they naturally fit into a lower hand position at address, a more compact posture. And to stabilize all that rotation, they often need a strong left-hand grip.
Which would look wrong to a traditional coach.
It would. But for them, it's perfect. It leads to a deeper hand path, a steeper downswing, and that creates incredible compression on the ball.
Okay, so that's the vertical wood chopper. What about the under archetype? What's their analogy?
If on top is chopping wood, under is like skipping a stone. It's horizontal, it's flatter, and it's all about forearm and wrist torque.
And the key move for them is the trail elbow, tucking way under the lead arm.
Exactly. That's what generates all that forearm rotation early in the swing, and that requires a totally different setup.
I'm guessing higher hands.
Much higher hands, more separation from the body. Their grip is usually more moderate or neutral, but they get their power from a really big wrist hinge. It all leads to a flatter swing plane, a more hand-driven release, and it's why they're often natural draw players.
And then you have the balanced ones, the on-the-side players.
Yeah, the happy medium. They've got a bit of both, that shoulder drive and the arm rotation, so they can produce that classic middle-of-the-road swing plane pretty naturally.
So their setup is just...
Pretty much. Natural posture, medium hand height, neutral grip. It gives them a ton of control and makes it easier to shape shots intentionally.
Okay, so here's the question. I'm an on-top player, naturally. But 10 years ago, a coach told me I had to have a flat swing and a weak grip, like a pro he admired. What happens to my swing?
That is the perfect question. Because what happens is your whole system panics.
Panics.
Yes. Your body wants to rotate deeply. That's your intrinsic dynamic. But that weak grip you were forced into makes it impossible to square the club face from that position. So your body has to invent a fix. It creates a compensation chain.
Like casting the club.
Casting, or maybe that classic early extension where your hips thrust towards the ball, that move that looks like a terrible flaw is actually your body's brilliant last-ditch effort to save that mismatched grip and get the club face square.
Wow. So the flaw we spend years trying to
It was
fix.
just a symptom. It was never the real problem. The problem was the mismatch right at the very beginning in the setup.
That thinking just, it flips the entire coaching process on its head.
It completely reverses it. You stop fixing symptoms and you start fixing the blueprint.
Okay, let's shift focus from the upper body to the real power source, the lower body. And the sources talk about this one key metric from 3D analysis called the sway gap.
Yes, the sway gap. It's a fantastic metric because it's so simple but tells you so much about rotational efficiency.
So what is it exactly?
It's just the lateral distance between the center of your chest and the center of your pelvis. You measure it throughout the swing. Think of your chest and pelvis as two ends of a giant rubber band. The gap is how much they're stretching and moving relative to each other.
And its setup, where should that gap be?
Your sources say for a balanced setup, it's pretty small, maybe 2 to 4 inches. That gives you a nice neutral axis to rotate around.
But then in the backswing, that gap has to grow, right? That's the coil.
That is the power storage. At the top of the backswing, a bigger gap means more separation, more torque, more stored elastic energy. But the really critical measurement is the gap at the moment of impact.
Because that determines how the club is delivered to the ball.
It's a direct link to your shot shape. The data is super clear on this.
So what does it show?
While players with a large sway gap at impact, we're talking 8 inches or more, they naturally produce an in-to-out club path. They're almost always draw players.
And the opposite for faders.
Exactly. Players who have a small sway gap, so 4.5 inches or less, they tend to have a flatter or even slightly out-to-in path. They are your natural faders and cutters.
And the sources bring up someone like Scotty Scheffler. His move is so unique, but the key is that his sway gap isn't huge or tiny. It's just incredibly consistent.
Consistency is everything. His ratios, the sequence of how his chest and pelvis move, it's unbelievably repeatable. If that gap suddenly collapses or expands erratically in the downswing, that's when you know the whole sequence is broken down.
The arms get disconnected from the body.
Totally. And that's where you lose all your power and all your direction.
This all leads to what feels like the biggest philosophical change in coaching, which is moving from diagnosing the effect, what happens at impact, to focusing on the origin, the setup.
For decades, lessons have started with, you came over the top or your club face was open.
Right.
But those are just data points. They're symptoms. The modern question is, why did the body deliver the club that way? And the answer is almost always found back in the setup and those architectural mismatches.
So the modern coaching sequence is completely flipped.
It's totally inverted. Step 1 is now. Start at the setup. You measure the posture, the grip, the initial sway gap. You establish the blueprint.
Then you analyze the motion.
Step 2, you analyze the rotation. How did the chest pelvis and arms sequence. And then step 3, you diagnose the matchups. Does this grip support that arm path? Does this stance width allow for that pelvic rotation?
There's a quote in the source material that just says it all. If you can change the setup, you often fix the swing without even trying.
I love that quote. It implies that the body is smart. It will find the most efficient path if you just get out of its way at the start.
And that's where the tech comes in, the AI Golf Chatbot.
Right. It's the objective observer. It measures over 35 different biomechanical parameters, not just sway gap, but things like ground force pressure, the deceleration rate of the pelvis. It's not guessing.
It's just providing the data.
It's providing the science. It spots the deviations from the ideal pattern for your specific archetype and shows you exactly where the mismatch is.
Can you give us another concrete example of how instruction would change based on an archetype?
Sure. Let's go back to that on-top player, the shoulder-driven one.
Yeah.
You would absolutely never give them a drill that encourages a wide, flat takeaway.
Because you're forcing them into an unnatural position.
It's an impossible position for them. You're guaranteeing they have to lurch over the top on the way down just to find the ball. Their instructions should be all about promoting depth and rotation, maybe with a slightly narrower stance.
And what about for an underplayer, the forearm rotator?
So if an underplayer is struggling, a traditional coach might try to quiet their wrists, right? To stop them from being flippy.
Which would kill their power source.
It would destroy it. The AI might find instead that their forearm rotation is just a bit too fast for their narrow stance. So the fix isn't to change the hands, it's to widen the stance a bit, to slow down the lower body and let their natural power source the arms and hands sync up properly.
It just always comes back to working with your body, not against it.
Test, match, and measure. That's the mantra. Stop trying to be a clone of a tour pro and start building the best version of you.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for you, the listener? This whole 9-swing archetypes model, it isn't about putting you in a box.
No, it's the opposite.
It's about liberating you. It's about giving you permission to build a swing that actually honors your unique physical design so it can finally be repeatable, powerful, and maybe most importantly, safe.
That's the whole takeaway. The best coaching today is about stopping the fight against the body and starting to work with its intrinsic dynamics. Consistency doesn't come from conforming to a model. It comes from harmony between your setup and your structure.
It completely reframes what a good swing even is.
It does. And maybe we can leave you with one last thought to chew on.
Okay.
We focused a lot on structure, bone length, right angles. But the sources also mention that your intrinsic dynamics are shaped by your injury history and even your lifestyle.
What do you mean?
Well, think about this. If you spend 8 hours a day hunched over a desk, you're creating tightness in your hips, stiffness in your upper back. Those limitations, they become part of your intrinsic dynamics. So the question is, how much of your swing fault is actually just a direct reflection of your daily life? And what would happen if you fixed that tightness before you even went to the driving range?